this is Emmy Peterson, the founder of Expat TV, as well as the Bridge Easy Relocations. I work with expats and travelers all over the world and help them to land and truly enjoy themselves in their new home. Here on Expat TV, we've had several lovely guests, and today I want to introduce you to the lovely Linda. Linda's passion is to help people build their capacity to create their own success, however they define it. For several years, she ran a successful boutique management consultancy. She currently teaches at a top-ranked graduate school and has authored several books, magazine articles, and multimedia resources, with lots more to come. In the past 12 months, Linda has transitioned her business to focus on coaching, speaking, and developing resources that help people apply the law of attraction to create joy, fun, and success in their life as well as in their business. Informed by science and inspired by her own experience, Linda has helped many others turn their life and business dreams into reality. In 2015, Linda published her 7th book, Beyond Positive Thoughts, Live Your Life by Design, Not Default. Welcome, Linda, to Expat TV. So welcome everyone to Expat TV. This is Emmy Peterson, and I'm here with the lovely Linda, who is a fellow expat coach, and we are going to talk about a really cool subject today that I'm dying to get into. Welcome to the call today, Linda.
Oh, thanks, Emmy. I love talking to you because I think this is such an important topic for us expats.
I absolutely agree. So today we're going to chat about motherhood in a foreign country. So as in you being an expat, moving to another place and having children, either with someone from your country of origin or someone that you've met who's from another country. So if you wouldn't mind, Linda, would you like to share briefly with us about your own experience of being a mother in another country?
Yeah, sure. It was really interesting because for a long time, when I was single, I just enjoyed being single, never really thought I'd be a mother, so it was really interesting. And then when I moved over here, I married a guy from Australia and I came over here. And I found that, being a mother was one of the best experiences because you're so connected with your children. But I think being a mother in a new country can also bring on some challenges. And I think that one of the things that we talked about before we actually started to have the interview was just the whole medical system and, what do you do for checkups and, what are some of the resources? And, some of those simple things that, even though you weren't a mother in your home country, you kind of knew what the system was. So I think that can be pretty challenging. I think also when my daughters are 2 years apart, now they're in their late 20s and early 30s. But I think sometimes when you're at home with young children, you can feel a bit isolated because you're there and you're doing all the normal routines and everything. But I found being a mother an amazing experience. I mean, it was really one of the best experiences in the world. And when I had my daughter, both of my daughters, it was a pleasant surprise that my mom actually flew over from the U.S. to be with us. So, that was really great. But I think but also when you have children and as they grow up, you see them through the eyes of the country you're living in, because, that's where they're growing up. And I think one of the things that I found in me was, wherever you come from, there are always traditional holidays and traditional events. And in Australia, the seasons are flipped around. So,
They are. It's very hard for us from the Northern Hemisphere.
So
very different. Spring is autumn, autumn is spring. It's too confusing.
Yeah, so Christmas is like, it was really silly to make a turkey and do all the baking and everything. But I think that what I found was you kind of missed some of those traditional holidays. And we would try to have it's interesting. I have a friend who was married to an American and she'd say, oh, you've got to have Thanksgiving. You got to do this. And we did it for a few years, but then I thought, no, you know what? I'm in Australia. So let's just live with the Australian, kind of thing. So, but you do kind of miss some of those, just some of those traditions. But I think the sooner you can say to yourself, yep, I'm now in Australia. So I'm actually going to fully embrace what this culture has, because it's a great country. I just love living here. Then I think that really, that helps you, your mindset, because, the area that I most talk to people about in terms of routines is your mindset. and the energy that you put out there. And
Yeah.
I think, you create your reality.
Yeah, absolutely. And the cool thing, I think what you're touching on as well is the whole like having children. I can imagine there's a part of you that really wants them to feel comfortable and settled in the country they were born in. At
Yes.
the same time as you want to, as a mother, obviously educate them about your culture and the type of food that you have there and how you celebrate holidays, etc. And I mean, being Swedish myself, I know that for some mothers, it also becomes about the language. So it's a lot about
Yes.
teaching your children the, actual language, or even just the subtleties of the language. Because for you, I can imagine Australia and America. Obviously, we speak English in both countries. At the same time, though, there are subtleties in pronunciation and how you say things and things like that. And I've come across a lot of expat moms from Scandinavia or Europe coming to Australia, and they really struggle a little bit with not only the cultural elements, but bringing that language along and teaching their child the second language and speaking that daily. And there's a lot of books and literature on that. But I think the most important thing you're touching on is accepting that you've chosen to be in this country for now.
Yes.
And to finding an organic way that's resourceful to blend your old culture, your food, etc. I mean, I cook meatballs all the time for my friends. They love it. But I will still have an Australian barbecue for Christmas time, because that's what we do here.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty funny. So you had both of your daughters here in Australia, and you didn't have an experience of being a mother in the US. Is that right?
No, yeah, I never had an experience being a mother in the US. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was the most unexpected challenge that you found, other than, I mean, I'm sure that motherhood has its own, hormones and roller coasters up and down. What was the most unexpected challenge being an expat here in Australia, being pregnant or having your children? What was something that stood out for you?
Well, I think for me, and I'll mention this because some other people may have the same situation. Probably one of my biggest challenges was my mother-in-law, who was extremely interfering. And I'll give you an example. When we had our first daughter, my husband rang her to say, "We've had a daughter," and she hung up because we didn't name her after her. So I mean that's
Goodness.
that will show you her personality. And I just found it really hard as a young mother, because she would keep forcing stuff, and it would be these crazy kind of things. But I just found I couldn't, it was hard to be, settling in on my own. So that was a real challenge. And I mention that because some others who have moved over here to be with their partner's family, you may find that you have one of those in-laws who it's a real challenge to deal with. But I think for me, it's funny because sometimes it's the little things, like, over in the US, because my daughters, it was about 25 years ago that I had them. Over in the US, there are all these little things that you could get, these gadgets and everything. And they didn't have them over here. So it was kind of like, oh, I missed that. Why can't we, why can't we have this and that? And so, but then it was like, well, let's just get on with it. So I think, I missed some of those things. And I think that was really more just the familiar stuff. It's like, well, I can't just go to the store and get this, but then you just find other things. And I did find, like, we had the system where you take them to the nurse, and then and I knew that, and my daughter, my oldest daughter, when she was 3 weeks old, she had a problem with one of her breasts. And so in the US, you just used to go into the pediatrician. But I had to go through all these other doctors, and it was like, well, can't we just get this thing resolved? So that was quite interesting, and it was just really trying to understand the system. And I think when they started school, it's still, because I didn't grow up in the school system here, there were things that I just found, just those little things, but what do you do about this, and what do you do about that, and how do you manage this, and some of the teachers still did corporal punishment. And I said to them, absolutely no. I don't want you to do that to my daughters, because it was against the law in the United States ages ago. So, so some of those things were really, they were a challenge. And I think sometimes just some of the isolation. But what I would actually do is I would often, get them in the car. We'd go to the shopping center, and we'd sit in a cafe and have coffee or whatever. And there were a few friends that I that I had met, because one of our communities we're part of a church. So there were some people who still had children. And so, it's the same age. So I'd get together with them. But then on the other hand, I mean, some of the people would come by and they'd bring by a meal, but then they would just be, well, you should do this with your daughter. She's crying. You should do that. And so it was like, they were just trying to tell me what to do. And it was like, not exactly what I wanted to do. So I think that it was that whole thing about just getting used to the scenario, and again, wishing that at some point in time I could have just had an old friend come by and talk, and we could, do you know what I mean? And we could exchange ideas. But it was a wonderful experience. I just loved having my kids. And one of the things that I kept thinking about was, I think it was a phrase my grandmother used to say was, if it doesn't make you bitter, it can make you better. So especially the thing around the mother-in-law, I kept thinking, okay, if it doesn't make me bitter, it can make me better, so, and I think that really helped me through a lot of some of those challenges that,
It's really interesting because I mean, with I've noticed here, I don't have children myself. I have a few friends my age who are, pregnant with their first or second child. And what a lot of people tend to say is that, you got to find the way that's right for you.
Yes.
And I think that goes almost whatever country you have your child in, because there'll be advice not only culturally in the context of that country, but there can also be, just people's general opinion. And one theme that I've seen as a not yet mother myself is people's fear of getting it wrong. And I couldn't help but think of that when you touched on the school system and how you didn't grow up here and your daughters are going to school here, and they're in a system that works slightly different to what you might have been used to. And as a mother, I can imagine, you'd want to give your children the best opportunity possible. And you don't want to look bad in front of the other parents because you didn't understand that, for example, small things. In Sweden, we never have school uniforms nor packed lunches. In Sweden, you get a cooked meal for lunch at school for free. All children do. So for me, even the whole concept when I lived in America and worked as a nanny for a family to pack lunches and sandwiches, I was like, this is really weird. But also the side of that obviously as a mother, you wouldn't want to get that wrong because it would reflect on your children.
Yes. And, I mean, I must say that was something that was a huge adjustment to me, because growing up in the US, we always had cafeterias, and we'd eat it obviously inside, and we'd have hot meals, and it was just part of our thing. And over here, not only did you have to pack the lunch, but they'd sit outside in the winter. And I think, so you're not in some warm cafeteria where you're getting hot food, it's like,
and it does get cold in Australia too. It's not that in the winter time, it can be a bit nippy here in the south.
You're sitting outside eating lunch. It's like, oh my word, this is so you did. But I think also and it's funny because I wrote, when my daughter was 3, when my youngest daughter was about 2 or 3 years old, I wrote an article for New Woman magazine called Confessions of a Faint-Hearted Career Woman. And I think in some ways I had a firm confidence, and I wanted to be the mother that I wanted to be. And so there were times when, and I'll give you an example, when our oldest daughter was, I think when she was in like year 8, The Offspring was the music group that, and I love their songs, and Catherine loved them. She goes, Mom, can we go to The Offspring? I said, yeah, let's go to The Offspring. So a couple of the mothers, their daughters wanted to come with us, and one of the mothers came over and she goes, Linda, it's just so bad that you're going to take her to The Offspring because they swear and all that stuff. And I said, well, you know what? I said, I personally think that it's much better for me to go with them and see how you can enjoy the good parts of the music and just ignore the rest, And I said, so yeah, because I love the music, and and a lot of their songs are really, they're really insightful. And there was one song that I would not have Catherine listen to, but I said, no, I think it's about getting them out in the world and having them understand how to discern what's good and what's not, and not, do you know what I mean? So I did get a fair bit of criticism around that. And I also, what I found in the schools that my daughters went to, a lot of the moms were very gossipy. So I just found that I was kind of odd person out anyway, because I wouldn't go along with that, So, but I think I guess I was confident enough in how I wanted to be as a mother
Yeah.
that I just thought, well, you know, we'll just have that be that, you know.
That is so interesting. And I guess, you know, we're talking a lot about what you needed to do for yourself as a woman and
Mm,
as a mother. I'm a bit curious if you wanted to touch on a little bit on how it changed the relationship with your partner, because we
mm,
all know that parenthood changes the dynamic a
yeah.
little bit in your
Yes.
family.
Yeah.
And obviously, whenever someone moves from one country to the other and you move to your partner's country, they
Mm,
tend to take the lead on some practical things and things like that, you know, because
mm,
they're simply more familiar with how the system
mm,
works. If I was ever to bring a partner back to Sweden, I most certainly would take the lead because I know how it works.
mm.
So, how did you find, you know, I guess both the practical and the emotional side with your husband as you were going through this? Did you have to lean on him more than you expected, or how did that play out for you guys?
Yeah, no, I would say not because because again, his mother was in the mix. And
Mm,
so it was really just trying to get that out of the situation. So, and I think because of the way he was raised with her, I mean, he had a father as well, but there, because he came from a Greek background, I think there was, because so they were very critical of Australia. You know, the parents would sit there and tell me about, you know, the Australians do this, so you've got to get to know the Greeks first and all that stuff. So
mm,
I mean, he went through the Australian school system, but I really kind of felt like, I mean, we were both thrilled as parents, you know,
mm,
and so we, you know, I guess we, you know, enjoyed the parenthood journey and everything. But I
mm,
think that in terms of some of my negotiating my way through stuff, I think it was really me kind of taking the initiative to, you know, get the school, you know, understand the school thing, understand the medical thing. And I
mm.
think also because he had never been a parent,
Yeah,
you know, it's sort of that new journey as well. So
yeah,
yeah, so and I guess in some ways it's good that we were both working together in partnership as opposed to me feeling like I had to lean on him because it was a new journey for both of us to like have the kids go to school and just like
yeah.
so
So what would be, I'm loving this conversation as a hopefully future mom to be at some point. I will take all this advice on board and make sure that I do it in my way. What are some advice that you would have for expat moms, whether it's someone pregnant with their first child or maybe have a young child at home who's about to hit school age in the next few years? What would be some key advice that you'd like to leave our viewers with today around this topic?
I think one of the things that you said, Emmy, is, you know, trust your instinct as a mother because, you know, I made a lot of mistakes as a mother, and I think most of us moms say, "Oh, I made loads of mistakes." But the one thing that I always say to my daughters is, "You know that I loved you, and you
Mm,
know that I." And sometimes, you know, when they were young, I'd often say, "I'm richer than a queen because mommy has two little girls." You know, so. But I think really it's have confidence in yourself and have confidence in yourself as a mother. And one of the things that when I was pregnant, and my mother warned me about this, she'd write me letters. When you're pregnant, sometimes what happens, and I don't know why people do this, is they'll give you all the horror stories. And it's like,
yes, I've heard that.
it's like, well, that's really helpful. And so my mother would say to me, she'd say, so, and I'd never take a bus, but she'd go, so the lady on the bus, don't listen to her when she goes, oh, it's going to be a terrible experience. And so I thought, and I don't know why people do that because whenever I find anybody gets pregnant, I'm always supportive and go, oh, it's so great. You're going to have a great experience and all this stuff. But, you know, just ignore that because that's their experience and that's not necessarily your experience. But I would say really just, you know, remember that every year that you have them, the years go by so quickly, you know, just, and I would often say that I would say, you know, because, you know, sometimes they'd be crying and the house would be messing with them. I think, you know what? I've only got them at home for 18 years. So I'm going to enjoy every year because, you know, when they leave home, and I've got a great relationship with them now. We WhatsApp each other all the time. So I think that, you know, and they're the ones who say to me, Mom, we even had a family holiday for a while. So, you know, regardless of all your little mistakes that you make,
Yeah,
if you be yourself. So I'd
yeah,
say, be yourself. And if someone gives you advice, that doesn't make sense or doesn't sound to you, or if they criticize you and you feel like you're doing the right thing, really have confidence in yourself because
mm,
you know as a mother what's best for you and your children and your family.
yeah. I think that's really, really useful advice, because I think mothers anywhere in any country, regardless of your
Mm.
relationship status or situation, I think that it's really, really key to trust that gut instinct.
Mm.
And I guess the other thing that I would like to encourage people to do as well is to ask for help.
Yes,
Even if
yes,
you know
yeah.
you can ask for help. There's a different thing, I think, around people telling you what you should be doing, and just simply asking people, so how does the system work
Mm.
at the hospital?
Yeah,
Do I
yeah,
choose the hospital? Do I choose the doctor? Who do I approach first when
yes,
I find out that I'm pregnant?
yeah.
How does the when the
Mm.
children are born, where do I go for checkups and that sort of
Mm.
stuff? Because
Mm.
I think very often people get really overwhelmed with the how am I going to do this?
Yes,
You need help around the how, where am I going
yeah.
to be, and
Mm.
how does it work, to give
Mm.
birth in this country. I
Mm.
think, if you can get that sorted and get the information around it, because let's remember that every single mom who has their first child, they've never been a mom before. They
Yes, that's
probably have
right.
never gone through
Yeah.
the system, even if it's their own country.
Yeah, that's right. See, that's right, and I think that's true. Even because I was thinking about that. Like, even if I had stayed in the U.S. and had a child, I never have had a child before. So it's like
Correct. Yeah.
I've still got to ask the same questions.
I know. I know. So, I mean, other than the beautiful advice that you've given us today, Linda, I think we really want to leave our readers as well with, the two key things is embrace and trust your own instinct, be the
Yes.
mother that you want to be, regardless where you're
Mm.
from, where your children are born, or who your partner is.
Mm.
And also dare to ask for help and support and advice. And
Mm.
because motherhood, I can only imagine, is a very emotional experience from beginning to
Mm.
all the way through, and worrying about your children and that you're doing the right thing.
Mm.
But yeah, I think that would be very helpful for all the mothers out there, and I certainly feel a bit a bit more calm about potential future motherhood. So thank you so much, Linda, for being on the show today. I
Oh, it's
loved your
my
advice, and
pleasure.
I trust our viewers have as well. And obviously, we're going to put a little link to Linda's website at the end of this video so that you can connect with Linda, ask for advice around. She's very good when it comes to routines and those sort of things. But also, if you're
Mm.
looking to connect with an expat mom, I'm sure that Linda would take a moment and reply to your message and give you some advice.
Oh, definitely. Because I must say, being a mom has been the most treasured thing in the world. So I'm, more than happy to just talk to anybody and to support and encourage them. And I had written a little ebook about when mothers want to go back to the workplace and how they've developed so many skills mothering. So when I send you the link to my website, I'll actually send a link where that book is. People can just download it for
Brilliant.
free.
That's great. So
Yeah.
we'll put those links up at the end of this call, as well as under this video, so you
Yep.
can click there and connect with Linda. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for generously sharing your experience and your resources with our viewers
Mhm.
today. It's been a pleasure having you, and I'll chat to you very soon, Linda.
Yes, thanks, Emmy, and it's been a pleasure to
Thank
be on.
you.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
All right.
Thank you so much to Linda for being on Expat TV today. That was an amazing conversation, and I trust you got as much value out of that as Linda and I did having a chat about it. I would highly recommend for you to connect with Linda through her website that you can see on the screen right now, and ask any questions you might have around today's conversation. We really look forward to see you next time on Expat TV.